Okay, Chevra. So it's really great to be with you guys in Toronto again. And we're going to try and create a stepping stone, create a path that can lead us into Pnimiyus HaTorah. I don't want to go too deep first and foremost, because if we run too deep inside, then we lose sight of what the process inwards is. But there's also a second value in remaining in the slow and steady introductions into Pnimiyus HaTorah. And it's a deep secret because ultimately we tend to live with an awareness that there's the process towards something and there's the destination that you arrive at. And we look at the process as something that's secondary to the arrival, something that is necessary, but ideally we'd be able to do without it. Because ultimately, all we want to do is we want to arrive. We want to come to the destination that we're expecting to arrive at. And our entire lives are split into this kind of categories of process and goal, effort and result. And part of human consciousness and part of the development of history is that we live with a deep divide between these two modalities. We look at preparation as secondary, symptomatic of human failure, necessary because of the Chet of Adam Harishon, but not ideal. And we spend our whole lives trying to run to the destination. As a result of not valuing the process and seeing the process as a secondary, incidental expression of existence, not only do we not pay attention to it, but we struggle with it. We're bothered by the fact that there's a process. We're bothered by durational effort. And as technological advancements kind of increase and they increase and they increase and they get quicker and quicker and quicker, we seem to have recaptured this ability to kill off the need for a process, to get rid of the steps that lead to the result. And we're able to get the result immediately, at least in information, at least in technological advancement, which seeks to collapse the time between effort and arrival. But we lose out on something profoundly significant in that, which is that Hashem's light is found as much as in the process as it is in the arrival. And that in spite of the fact of what appearances tell us and what the experience in this worldly reality tells us, when it comes to Avodas Hashem, when it comes to relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the process and the path inwards is as significant as the arrival inwards. In fact, it might even be more significant than the arrival inwards. Because when we're able to find Hashem by the destination, when we're able to arrive at our expected result and we can feel good about ourselves and about our circumstances, so then it's not so surprising to be able to live with the light of Hashem in that place. I have everything I need. I'm no longer wanting. I've arrived where I need to arrive at. The deal is done. I've done what I needed to do. But to find Hashem in the process where I feel that I'm traipsing through the mud and pushing myself against the resistance along the road, and not quite sure when the destination is going to arrive. So it's far more difficult for a person to be able to draw down the comfort and the well-being of being at one with God and knowing that everything is exactly as it should be. How could a person say everything is exactly as it should be when they're still on the road and it's raining outside and they're in the process and they have no idea how they're going to arrive at the destination they so want to get to? The secret of Pnimiyus HaTorah and the secret of Avodas Hashem ultimately is coming to understand the words of David Malka Mashiach, which is Yismach Leiv Mevakshe Hashem, that glad is the heart of those who yearn after HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who effortlessly, not effortlessly, adrabah, with great effort and great investment, we push and we slowly but steadily come closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Torah tells us that that's where joy is going to be found. Not in the destination of closeness to Hashem, but in the bikush, in the mavakshe Hashem, in the desire to come closer. Desire implies longing, it implies distance, it implies the fact that I have not yet arrived at where I want to get to. And that's where we're supposed to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're meant to see HaKadosh Baruch Hu as much in the process towards the goal as in the goal itself. Ultimately, when Mashiach Tzidkenu arrives, what he's going to reveal to us is how Hashem was as present in the process as he was in the result. And it's going to be this painfully pleasurable experience where we suddenly come to realize that all of those times that I felt I hadn't arrived yet, all of those times that I felt I was on the outside, all of those times that I felt that something was missing or something was taking me away from where I actually needed to be, in truth, that's exactly where I needed to be. In truth, Hashem was with me exactly where I thought he wasn't. And that revelation is going to be of such import that we're suddenly going to see all of the concealment fall away, and we'll come to realize that we were with Hashem all along. Now, the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because Hashem doesn't want us to experience the joy of Mashiach with any sense of sadness. The sadness of Mashiach's arrival will be, wow, if I only knew. Had I only known that along the process of Avodah, in the trying and the building and the falling and the climbing and the standing and the sitting, all of the processes, had I only knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was there with me all along, then I would have been able to been as joyous with HaKadosh Baruch Hu then as I am now. But woe to me that I didn't know. Nobody told me that the process was as important as the goal. Nobody told me that the road was as important as the destination. And now only when I'm at the destination am I realizing it. So in order to save us from the pain that would come from such a sad recognition of all of that time we spent thinking that we weren't with Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent down the gift of Pnimiyus HaTorah. That medicine that we spoke about, that medicine that was hidden within what Moshe Rabbeinu received from Har Sinai, that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai went into the cave to cultivate in a deeper way and bring out again, that medicine that the Arizal revealed on the banks of the Nile River and that the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh drew down into our day-to-day experiences, and that Rabbi Nachman and all of the tzaddikim and the Gra and all of the lights and the luminaries of Pnimiyus HaTorah, that they drew it down to us, that medicine that Hashem revealed is the awareness that we can taste the light of the arrival in the process itself. It's a secretion of the light of Mashiach. This unfolding chapter of Pnimiyus HaTorah and the exposure that we have to the ideas that compose Pnimiyus HaTorah is nothing other than the light that is going to be revealed in the future that somehow, some way drips into current consciousness. We get to live now with the awareness of what's going to be. And that eases the burden, right? Because now if we know that Hashem is going to be found in the process as much as he is in the destination, and we're being told that secret even before arrival at the destination when we're still in the midst of the process, well, that gives us the remarkable ability to become aware of the fact that Hashem is with us wherever we're at, right here, right now, on the path. This is the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah, the ability to look at where we are right here, right now, and to realize that while there's so much that has to be changed and there's so much that has to be fixed and cultivated, nevertheless, in the way of the secret of Hashem's unity, we're also able to realize that Hashem is with us right here, right now, and that there's absolutely nothing missing from our circumstances. If we want to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu right here, we could connect to him in a way that we're going to merit to connect to him in the time of Mashiach. That's what the tzaddikim came to reveal to us. The tzaddikim came to reveal the secret fact that Hashem is giving us a taste of Olam Haba in this world. That's the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, explaining the revelation of the Gilui of Torah HaChasidus in the time that it was revealed, compares it to one mitzvah. He says every generation has its own mitzvah. So what was the mitzvah that the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh came to reveal? The mitzvah that the Baal Shem came to reveal was To'ameha, the mitzvah of eating and tasting the food of Shabbos on Erev Shabbos itself, which sheds a little bit of light on the cultural phenomenon that our communities seem to have developed, which is transforming To'ameha, the pre-Shabbos taste of Shabbos, into a full-on feast, for better or for worse. But part of it can be seen in a positive light through the understanding of what the Lubavitcher Rebbe meant when he said that the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov is the mitzvah of To'ameha Chaim Zachu. What's the mitzvah of To'ameha? Mitzvah of To'ameha is that there's food on Shabbos that's saturated with Elokus, that's saturated with godliness. Shabbos is a me'ein olam haba, a time where worry stops, whether we like it or not. Worry doesn't just dissipate, we all know that, but we're actively called to put an end to the worrying. We're actively called to still the voice of worrying and say, I'll hear you after Shabbos. Shabbos is a light of ki'ilu kol melachtecha asuya, as if all of your work is done. Whether or not all of our work is done is not so much the question. We have to actively awaken a mindset that sees our reality through a lens of as if all of your work is done on Shabbos. Why? Because Shabbos is a microdose of La'asad Lavo. It's a taste of Gan Eden. It's a taste of Olam Haba, the destination. We no longer are actively going out. We no longer are actively trying to pursue anything, but rather cessation of activity is the site of the true revelation. And the mitzvah of To'ameha is to be able to taste the food of Shabbos on Erev Shabbos already. That to take that anticipated light that's going to come about in Shabbos, that Me'ein Olam Haba, and to drag it down into the week, to drag it down into the whole, to ensure that we have a taste of this even when it's not yet here. This revelation is exactly what we're talking about, the ability to see the light of the end result within the process itself. If we were able to understand that every step of the journey that feels so long and so disjointed and so topsy-turvy and circuitous, if we were able to be aware of the fact that each and every step, each and every breath, each and every momentary thought that crossed the threshold of my mind, all of it, without anything leaving that quality of all of it, was connected fundamentally to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If I could begin to live that way even before Mashiach's arrival, then what I'm doing is I'm drawing the future into the present moment. The entire purpose of the revelation of Pnimiyus HaTorah, to give us an access, to give us a taste of the light of Mashiach even prior to Mashiach's arrival. When Chazal would take leave of one another, as the Masechtas Brachos tells us, they had certain key phrases that they would say to one another. One of the key phrases that gets locked in on by various tzaddikim throughout our tradition is the blessing of Oilamecha Tireh B'chayecha. You should see your world in your days. Oilamecha Tireh B'chayecha, seeing your world in your days, becomes a code word for all of the tzaddikim, the world of Musar, the world of Lithuanian Kabbalah, the light of Hasidus, light of Pnimiyus HaTorah, Chitzonius HaTorah. Everybody grabs hold of this word, this phrase, Olamecha Tireh B'chayecha, seeing your world in your days. And they all understand it in a simple way. The blessing of seeing one's world in their days is the ability to draw down the future light of comfort and goodness and alignment and all rightness, and to preempt it, to bring it down deep into current awareness, deep into consciousness of this moment, and to be able to sweeten whatever difficulty a person is going through while they're still on the process, and to give us the ability of pausing and deepening our perspective, and for a moment taking a deep enough breath to realize that, wait a second, the light of Hashem is here with me right now. The light of Hashem is here with me right now. Everything is okay right now. Even though on the outside it doesn't look like it's okay, the outside will be fixed when Mashiach comes. But the inside could be fixed at any moment a person chooses. That's what Hashem revealed with the tzaddikim, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Arizal, the Gra, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, the Ramchal, the Rashash. Gave us the ability to taste of the world to come right here, right now. And this is all just an introduction to what I was describing before, that I want to go slowly into Pnimiyus HaTorah. Because the slower we go, the more we can come to realize that all of the introductions, all of the stepping stones that lead us into the chamber of Pnimiyus HaTorah are in fact the chamber of Pnimiyus HaTorah itself. The Arizal's writings, generally speaking, are referred to as hakdamos, introductions. Even though a lot of them go far beyond introductory knowledge and they go into complex ideas that theoretically only someone who has graduated from introductions would have access to. So that calls to question, why would the Arizal's entirety of his Torah be referred to as introductions? But based on what we've been discussing, we can understand it, that everything is ultimately an introduction. Everything is an opening, a point of entry into the light of godliness. And wherever I find myself, if I'm at the very beginning of the path or at the very end of the path, the ultimate goal is the same, to encounter the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite presence at the core of all things, and to draw down from that place emunah, bitachon, simcha, and his chazkos, the ability to stand up strong in the face of this world's concealments. So the slower we go, the more we'll be able to pay attention to the nuances of the introductory models that we're going into. And armed with the knowledge that the introduction and the destination are just two different expressions of the same exact thing, we'll be able to cultivate a sense of patience, savlanut. To be soivel something means that I can tolerate the duration of the process. Unlike a child who demands the destination immediately, whose only question is, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Pnimiyus HaTorah puts an end to that question, because even if we're not there yet, we're there. Even before we get there, we're there. All of the light that's going to be revealed when we get there is also available to us right here, right now, on an individual basis. Yes, we anticipate the ultimate redemption, and that's the destination of all things. That's the destination all hearts and all eyes are yearning towards. But at the same point, we don't let the delay of the collective redemption prevent us from tasting the light of our personal redemption, of Karva el Nafshi Giyala, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring redemption close to my soul. Even if I'm still on the road, even if I'm still on the destination, I can act as if I'm tasting the light of the destination itself. I can live with seeing my world in my days. I can taste calmness. I can taste ease. I can taste alignment. One of the interesting things about the Arizal's main sefer, Eitz Chaim, is that there's historically two titles that we give to this book. We generally refer to it as Eitz Chaim, as the tree of life. But elsewhere, in different kitvei yad and different textual expressions of this book, it's referred to as derech Eitz Chaim, the path towards the Eitz Chaim. So which is it? Is the light of Kabbalah, the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah, the tree of life itself? Or is the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah the path towards the tree of life? And based on what we said, the two terms can be considered interchangeable. Whether you're on the derech of the Eitz Chaim or the Eitz Chaim yourself, Pnimiyus HaTorah is meant to reveal to us this profound dosage of divine consciousness, which is, wait a second, there's nowhere to get to. I'm already there. I'm already there. And so through Pnimiyus HaTorah, even though the Sefer is called Derech Eitz Chaim, the path towards the tree of life, because Pnimiyus HaTorah is there to teach us how to find the light of the destination along the process, we can also refer to the Sefer as Eitz HaChaim itself, as the tree of life itself. We're only on the path towards the tree of life. To be on the path of the tree of life is also to be tasting from the tree of life itself. That's the secret of Pnimiyus HaTorah. It's borrowing a light from the future. There's a Maisa that I heard on Friday night at a Shalom Zachar, which was very, very beautiful. And it goes as follows. There was a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe of Lubavitch and the Tzemach Tzedek of Lubavitch, who he himself was not simply a chassid, but he was almost like a prototype of a Rebbe because of the wisdom and the depth that he was able to convey. And his teachings are fundamentally rooted and they speak to a very deep place in the soul. And his name was Rav Hillel Paracher, Schus Yogan Aleinu. Rav Hillel Paracher, the Pelech HaRimon. He was originally a student of the Bas Ayin. And before the Pelech HaRimon, before Rav Hillel Paracher met the Tzemach Tzedek, he was terrified of going. He was terrified to go and meet the Tzemach Tzedek. He was worried about what would happen with the exposure of this luminary, the light of the Tzaddik. Until finally, Rav Hillel Paracher garnered the strength to make that journey. And he sought to find for himself a wagon driver that would undertake this mission with him. It wasn't an easy trip from where he was going. And the wagon driver that he was known, Rav Hillel Paracher was known for his fervent tefillah. He would daven for hours and with depth of intensity and concentration. And the only wagon drivers that were willing to acquiesce to his request were ones that asked of Rav Hillel a certain request. They said, Rav Hillel Paracher, we're ready to bring you, but you have to promise us that your davening is going to be timely and that it's not going to be too lengthy and that we're not going to be left waiting and waiting endlessly for you. And Rav Hillel Paracher agrees, and they set out on the journey towards the Tzemach Tzedek. Lo and behold, when they stop for Shacharis, Rav Hillel Paracher gets ready, puts on his talis and his tefillin, and he goes into his hachanos for tefillah, and he goes into his elongated process of tefillah, undergoing all of the forms of ego nullification and refinement and clarification of selfhood and relinquishment from pleasures of this worldliness. And it took hours and hours and hours until afterwards the wagon driver said, Rav Hillel, it's not fair. Rav Hillel, you promised you weren't going to do this. And Rav Hillel Paracher answered as follows. He said, what would you say if you set out on a journey to go to the fair in Leipzig, to go to the fair where you would be selling all of your goods, and say on your way to sell all of your goods, to make the money that you needed for the year, you stop at an inn And suddenly there's somebody who comes to you at the inn and says, listen, I'd like to buy all of your fares off of you. I'd like to buy all of your product. What are you going to say? And the driver says, obviously, I would say, sure, I'm going to sell you everything right here, right now. Why would I need to go to Leipzig? And so Rav Hillel says, exactly. He says, I hired you to take me to the tzaddik. I hired you to take me to find my Rebbe. What do I hope to find by my Rebbe? What is it that I'm seeking by my Rebbe? I hope to learn new pathways of Das Elohim and connectivity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to learn the secrets of Dveikus, and to realize how close I am to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and to become more aware of the infinite light of Hashem. And so if I was able to taste that in the middle of my davening on the way towards the tzaddik, why in the world would I stop my davening to go to the tzaddik? I was tasting that light in my davening itself. This is the secret of Pnimiyus HaTorah, that the destinations that we want to arrive at are suddenly revealed to be ever present and available to us at any given moment we so choose to still our mind long enough in order to taste it. To end with this nakuda of the shir, one of my favorite teachings, I would say, and I say this without exaggeration, one of my favorite teachings is teaching number 516 in Chaye Moharan, the spiritual biography of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And Rabbi Nachman is recorded as offering a teaching that goes as follows: that in the future we're all going to say, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo, nagila v'nismachabach. That this is the God that I have been yearning for. I'm going to take joy and be glad with him. In the future, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals himself, Chazal tell us that Hashem is going to reveal himself equally to everybody. And everyone is going to yell out, Zeh Hashem kivinu lo, this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I've been yearning for. This is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that I've been seeking out my whole life. And says Rabbi Nachman, why are we using the language of Zeh, this? This implies a prior recognition. This doesn't reveal that I'm experiencing something for the first time. This reverts back to something that I already know. And says Rabbi Nachman that what we're going to say to ourselves in Yiddish is as follows: Taka tzudem Gott habe hier gehabt. That this God that's being revealed to me right now in the moment of redemption is exactly what I thought God was in my times of exile. It's exactly what I had hoped for. It's exactly what I was yearning for. That this revelation in the future is reflective of exactly what I thought the revelation would be when I was stuck in the exile. All of my best thoughts, all of my anticipatory hopes about what Hashem means, what faith means, what light means, all of those things that I was able to conjure up within my mind when I yearned towards you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's how you're revealing yourself right now. And so we're going to say, Zeh, this God that's being revealed right now is exactly the God that was revealed to us back then. Now, typically, before the light of Hasidus, that would only be exposed to us in the future moment. And we would be filled with a certain despondency of, oh my gosh, how much time did I waste? Had I only known that Hashem was with me right here, right now. Had I only known that if I paused and took a deep breath, I would be able to draw down the light of the future into the present moment, constricted consciousness itself. But now that the tzaddikim came along and told us the secret, we don't have to live that way. We can microdose elokus and redemption on a regular basis, so long as we put in the minimal amount of effort to gain control over our minds. I shouldn't say minimal amount of effort. It's a lot of effort. It's a daily act of choosing to redirect the mind to the places that we want to direct them to, and not to give in to the natural sway of the human tendency to just follow whatever deviant thought crosses the threshold of our minds. But with the strength necessary to recapture the territory of the mind, we have the ability of tasting the light of the future right here, right now. This is the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. This is what we're trying to do. Pnimiyus HaTorah is meant to bring comfort. Simply put, that's the goal of Pnimiyus HaTorah. It's meant to offer a salvic comfort to a soul that feels that it's stuck in exile. Pnimiyus HaTorah, through all of the various iterations of itself, is speaking about one thing and one thing alone, revealing the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in places that feel the opposite, in places of constriction, where a person feels forlorn or lost, or they don't know which direction to take. Pnimiyus HaTorah comes to reveal to us that right where you're standing, exactly where you are, the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is already available to you. It's already there. It doesn't mean that you're going to be able to access it without effort. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy street when it comes to accessing the innermost experience of that light. But Pnimiyus HaTorah frees us from the need to wander off beyond our minds, beyond ourselves, in the hopes of finding some external solution elsewhere. And it perpetually reminds us that the secret treasure is hidden right underneath the floorboards. As is known, this was the initiation rite. This was the story that Rabbi Nachman would tell his students before they became a chassid of Rabbi Nachman. That he would tell a metaphor. And the metaphor reflects exactly what we're talking about. The metaphor reflects the fact that there was a simple Jew, an impoverished Jew, who had absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. But he was okay with his nothingness. He was a simple Jew who lived day in and day out with whatever it took to get through the day, with yishuv hadas, with a settled mind, with joy, with comfort. And he suddenly began to have a dream. One night, he dreams that far away in a distant land, underneath a particularly noticeable bridge, that there was a treasure chest that would provide all of the necessities, all of the needs that this person would have to have. But as a simple Jew, he wakes up in the morning and says, dreams mean nothing to me. I'm not a mysterious person. So he went on his day of ordinariness. And then he had the dream again. But still, two nights in a row doesn't do much. Until the third day, he woke up from this dream and he said, you know what, even as a simple Jew, from having this dream for the third night in a row, it must be a message. So he sells all of his belongings and he leaves his decrepit hut with the muddy floor in the depth of the forest with its blackened furnace in the middle of it. And he sets off to find this mysterious land with the bridge underneath which the treasure is going to be found. And effortlessly, struggling, he gets there. Eventually, he sees it in the clearing. He sees the bridge in the distance. But lo and behold, he's encountering some Cossack soldier who's monitoring the bridge. And so this Yid waits and he tries to configure what his plan is going to be. And he decides that if I've come this far, I'm not going to let go. And I'm going to go under the cover of night and I'm going to dig under this bridge and retrieve the treasure. And under the cover of darkness, he runs underneath the bridge and he begins digging and digging. And suddenly, a few minutes in, he hears this loud voice of that Cossack soldier who says, what are you doing? Jew, what are you doing? And the Yid realizes he's been caught. And so he decides to make his best effort and he says, listen, I've had a dream over the last 3 nights, or I had a dream for 3 nights in a row that there's a treasure chest that's waiting underneath this bridge and I'll split it with you. I see that you've caught me. I'm going to split the treasures with you. And the soldier is listening in earnest. And when the Yid is done explaining his story, the Cossack soldier begins to cackle with that Cossack type of cackle of ridicule and belittling the Yid. And he says, you ignorant Jew, you stupid Jew. I've had a dream for the last 3 nights that somewhere in the blackened forest of Ukraine, in a decrepit hut with muddied floors underneath a blackened stove in the middle of the room, that there's a massive treasure that's even bigger than the treasure you're describing. But you don't see me running after it. And suddenly it dawns on the Yid what's happening here. And he slowly says goodbye to this Cossack soldier, makes the journey back to his house. He moves the stove away from the middle of the floor. He digs underneath the mud and he comes to find the treasure that's been there all along. This is the secret. We have to sometimes go so far and we have to imagine that there's these distant places of calmness, distant places of revelation, distant places of secrets, that only if we put in the modicum of effort and if we put in the Mesiras Nefesh enough, we'll arrive there. And that's true. There's levels always that need to be uncovered through Mesiras Nefesh. But the deepest level of revelation is the fact that I've been with HaKadosh Baruch Hu all along and I was never not with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has never not been by my side. He's been with me at every step of the journey. I don't feel him, I don't see him, I don't sense him, I don't smell him, I can't verify him, I can't bring proof to him. That's what Pnimiyus HaTorah comes to answer. Pnimiyus HaTorah comes to answer why the fact that I can't see HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a revealed way, why that doesn't mean that God is absent. It just means that Hashem is present in a different type of way. And in order to encounter him, you're going to have to come to terms with different forms of presence. That's the great question of Pnimiyus HaTorah. How is it that the infinite light of God can remain present within a finite system? And the simple answer is, and we're going to get to it in very deep ways, is that even though it appears to be finite, the infinite light is still there. Infinite light and finite system seems to be a paradox. Okay, that's true if you're not God, but if you're God, then you can do anything. This is the secret. Chachma Sakabala comes to teach us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everywhere. Everywhere, 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 everywhere. Every aspect of our lives, every mitzvah that we do, every waking moment of consciousness, Hashem is equally available to our consciousness. If we tune in and we learn the steady ability to close out the noise of the outside, to tame our bodies, to overcome the basic tendencies of the flesh that drag us away from God, and that place us into a place and a mindset where we're able to turn to Hashem and say, I'm here right now, and so are you. And in that way, a person begins to live the light of Olamecha Tira B'chayecha, tasting your world in your days, tasting Olam Haba in Olam Hazeh. That's the secret of microdosing redemption, of being aware that the tzimtzum, the concealment of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is not real. It's not real concealment. The world is very real, the world is very concealed. So we have to reorient ourselves towards what concealment means. Concealment doesn't mean the absence of God. Concealment just means the hidden presence of God. And with that very gentle reorientation of the mind, we come to realize that just because I can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. And we begin to cultivate a relationship with that which we can't see, but nevertheless believe is still there. That's the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah. It gives us the ability of seeing the infinite light everywhere. When a person begins learning Pnimiyus HaTorah, something very strange happens. Let's take the book Eitz Chaim, for example. The Eitz Chaim, what was the Eitz Chaim? Why is this book called the Eitz Chaim, or the Derech to the Eitz Chaim? Because the Eitz Chaim is the purpose of existence. Had we eaten from the Eitz Chaim, had we waited patiently enough not to partake of the Eitz Hadas first, an Eitz Chaim consciousness would have been a deep awareness of our fundamental unity and bond with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light. All of our humanity, all of our separateness, all of our thoughts and our orientations and our perspectives and selfhood, all of that would have been revelatory of Hashem's infinite light. There never would have been a time of feeling distant from Hashem. Even though we would be aware that we weren't Hashem, we would know that we were fundamentally connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we would have lived in a Gan Eden consciousness, which is Emunah and Tainug of Emunah, of being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But unfortunately, we ate from the Eitz Hadas, from the tree of changes, from the tree of doubts, from the tree of distortion, from the tree of progress and processes and a capitalistic orientation towards life. And that becomes the dynamic factor of our lives, chasing and turning and running this way and that way. The Eitz Hadas is a world of doubts and changes and trying and failing and not feeling good about the fails because all I want to do is succeed. And we're kicked out of Gan Eden. But had we eaten from the Eitz Chaim, we would have lived a life of connectivity, of dveikus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the ultimate purpose of dveikus to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is az tis'aneg al Hashem, that Hashem wants us to take pleasure, to enjoy the awareness of Him being present with us, to be amazed by the infinite presence of godliness that rests at the core of all separation. That's to eat from the Eitz Chaim. That's to live a life of dveikus with more and more revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, more and more of an unfolding process of realizing how deeply infinite the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, how profoundly powerful the Torah and the mitzvos are, and how illuminative and ascendant the soul of a Jewish person is. That's the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Hadas is when we doubt ourselves, when we feel low, is when we feel distant, is when we feel that we're missing it, is when we feel that we're too late in the process, or that I've spent my whole life doing this thing and now I can't turn it around. It's a world of judgments and shame and personal narratives that bog us down to the ground, which makes sinning more liable and more present in our lives. That's the world of the Eitz Hadas. Eitz Chaim is to live Olam Haba. Pnimiyus HaTorah is giving us an access point to that Eitz Chaim again. It's helping us re-enter into Pnimiyus HaTorah, re-enter into that innermost quality of life where I can take a deep breath and realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm right here with you and you're right here with me. That's the light of Einoid Milvado. That's the light of Or Ein Sof. That's the light of Eitz Chaim. to live with an absolute bittul to the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to look around at the world, and instead of seeing people who bother me, seeing reflections of the Shekhinah. Instead of seeing traffic jams, seeing gevuros. Instead of seeing opportunities, seeing shefa that's coming down from above. Instead of seeing black boxes that are made out of leather, seeing an advanced technology that enables me to somehow, some way connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through my body itself. With the light of Pnimiyus HaTorah, everything in a person's life, the food in front of you, your spouse in front of you, your child in front of you, your friend, your neighbor, your enemy, all of it becomes a meeting point with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nothing is outside the realm of unity. That's what Arizal is coming to give us. That's what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was coming to give us. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu was coming to give us. Eitz Chaim hi l'machazikim ba. The Torah is an Eitz Chaim to those who strengthen their connection to it. The only difference between pre-chet and after chet is that the only way we have access to the Eitz Chaim now is through hamachazikim ba. That we have to exert a lot of effort to hold on to it because it's not the natural setting of the mind. In the future, it's going to be very easy. This is the avodah, to get back to the Eitz Chaim. So the Arizal, as we're going to see, how does he start Eitz Chaim? What's the first topic that Arizal reveals to us? That before the creation of the world, before the separation of the world, before God enters into knowledgeability and knowability and graspability, all that existed was the infinite light of God. Light is but a metaphor that represents the most refined form of physical expression without being physical in all forms of physicality. That's why light is always used as a metaphor. Something that expands and expands and expands, and without restriction, it will continue to expand. Elsewhere, the metaphor is Mei Ein Sof, the infinite waters of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, reflecting again that ever-flowing nature. That's how the book starts off. And how does the book end? Eitz Chaim starts, you start with Or Ein Sof, and then slowly but surely you get dragged layer after layer, level after level down, not only into the worlds of creation, but into the deep realms of separation, concealment, congealment, and negativity. There's 50 sha'arim in the Eitz Chaim. The first sha'ar talks about Or Ein Sof. The last sha'ar talks about the klipos and the husks of impurity that block out the light of godliness in this world. But that's exactly the point. The book is teaching us how to slowly but surely draw the light of the Eitz Chaim back into our lives. Once we lost sight of Gan Eden, the Arizal came to bring Gan Eden into our lives. And the only way we're going to be able to bring Gan Eden into our lives is to realize that the Or Ein Sof at the very beginning and the klipos that we find ourselves stuck in at the very end are part of one singular story. And that the illumination of HaKadosh Baruch Hu above is equal to the illumination of HaKadosh Baruch Hu below. Down below when I'm in the klipos, I might have to fight tooth and nail through the processes of tshuva and birurim and clarification and mesiras nefesh and kivoy and hope and emunah and bitachon and all of the efforts that are needed from a yid in this world. Fine, that's not what we're talking about now. We're talking about the accessibility of the light. And the Arizal is coming to tell us one thing. Don't think that because you've been kicked out of Gan Eden that you've lost access to the Eitz Chaim. You have the ability to taste the Eitz Chaim. If you develop kavanah, if you develop intentionality, if you dig down deep into the reservoirs of selfhood, we can cultivate the strength to stand with HaKadosh Baruch Hu wherever we are. And it seems that just as the tzaddikim prophesies that in the future, Pnimiyus HaTorah is going to be what each and every yid needs. It's not going to just be the lot of the elite. It's not just going to be those who are deserving, but it's a medicine that's going to be needed for all. So that nevuah is coming true because the more difficult life gets, the more chaotic life gets, the more we feel that we're stuck in the klipos, the more necessary it is to draw down the infinite light of God, the more necessary it is to believe in what the Arizal and what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said and what Rav Moshe Rabbeinu said, which is Ein Oid Milvado. Ein Oid Milvado. What's Od? Od is everything in our lives, the extras in our lives, all of those places that we feel stuck. That's what Od means. Od in the pasuk of Ein Oid Milvado means everything that appears to be the opposite of Hashem. Comes along Pnimiyus HaTorah to tell us that Ein Oid Milvado, that there's actually nothing other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In all of the Od, in all of the things that appear concealed and constricted, in all of the present moment consciousness of the effort towards the goal, we have the ability of drawing the light of the result down into the process itself. to taste our world and our days, to see the light of Mashiach right here, right now. And what this looks like is nothing fancy. This doesn't reveal itself in being able to do magic, doesn't reveal itself in spending an hour putting on your tefillin, or spending an hour shuckling in front of the Nero's Hanukkah. Sometimes it reveals itself in a very still and subtle way of 1 extra second before I react to the person who's bothering me right now. 1 extra space of patience within the self. 1 more moment of a deep breath before reacting to the given triggers of this worldliness. That's what Hashem wants from us. To overcome ourselves, to uncover more within the less, to reveal the Elokus within us, to overcome the Nefesh HaBahamis through the divine soul that enables itself to tame the animalistic tendencies. And in that, we're tasting redemption each and every day. We're tasting redemption and we're yearning towards redemption at the same point, but not from a place of, oh my God, Hashem, when am I going to get to know you eventually? When am I going to get to finally believe in you? That's not the motivating factor. We want Mashiach to come to fix the world, to end Jewish suffering. But for me, I have das of Hashem. If a person learns Pnimiyus HaTorah, they have das of HaKadosh Baruch Hu already. And so the motivating factor for Geula becomes something more practical. I want Yidden to be in the place that Yidden should be. I want the Beis HaMikdash built. I want you, Hashem, to have the korbanos you so desire. That's why I yearn for Geula, not so I can have comfort. The comfort is readily available to me right now. I get to taste Einon Milvado right now. That's the secret of Pnimiyus HaTorah. That's the secret of the tzaddikim that we're going to be learning. And so as we enter in further and further, we have to keep this in mind, that every step of the way, as the Leshem explains in the introduction to his introductory sefer on Kabbalah, if you try and get to the end result at the beginning, you'll never get there, and you'll feel that all of the steps that are leading you there are simply too difficult for you. But says the Leshem in a very normal way, if you've never tasted the process before, you can't deny the validity of the process. Find Hashem wherever you are, find meaning in whatever terms you're learning, and figure out how to apply them to your lives. And in that way, we get to reveal one thing over and over, Eino and Movado. If we scratch the surface of any of the Svarim HaKadoshim, if we scratch the surface of any of the Chaf Dalet Sifrei Tanakh, of any of the Masechtos and Shas, of all of the Sifrei HaGaonim and the Rishonim and the Achronim Ad Dorenu, all of them are expressing one singular notion, which is Ein Od Milvado. There is nothing but you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with that, we should be Zoichet to Refuah, to Hamshacha of Chaim Amitim, of Simcha and Tainug through Pnimiyus HaTorah. And it's this way that Mashiach comes closer and closer, Be'ezras Hashem.